Sarah has worked hard to prepare for her first marathon and is considering her diet in the lead up to the event. Discuss the food sources that she should take on in the lead up to and during the race. And this is a 9 mark question. This is quite a nice question in that we can have a bit of choice in which food sources we think are most appropriate to add into the answer. So there's not just one or two or three set food sources that we have to choose. But saying that, we must think about what are going to be the best examples and make sure that we read the question carefully as it says the lead up to and during the marathon race and not afterwards. For our first AO1 point, we can mention fats. It's a good place to start. And that's all we need to say to show our knowledge of food sources. And then for our AO2 explanation, we could say something along the lines of fats are found in foods such as cheese and eggs and produce a slow release of energy. For our AO3, we can then start to link to marathon running and discuss why fats are going to be important for a marathon runner. So, this means that Sarah will have the energy required to take part in long distance training runs without getting fatigued or burning out. Her body will also have large stores of fats ready to use as energy on the day of the race, meaning that her performance will be improved. So I've gone into, even though that's quite concise in a couple of sentences, I've gone into plenty of detail there to say how fats are going to affect her performance. For the next paragraph, you could go down the route of discussing complex carbohydrates. So for our AO1, just for our point, we just need to mention complex carbohydrates. And for our AO2, we can explain what this means. So complex carbohydrates are found in foods such as pasta and rice, and they produce energy relatively quickly. If taken on within 24 hours of a race, these can be turned to glycogen and used for energy during the race. So we're showing our knowledge there of complex carbohydrates and how they produce energy. Again, for AO3, we go into a bit more detail and link to performance and to marathon running. So this will allow her to have an effective start to the race, burning off these complex carbohydrates relatively quickly at the beginning of the race before switching to her fat stores after approximately 1 hour. So this is showing some really good knowledge here of how your body uses both fats and carbohydrates. So to make that clear, if you're running a marathon obviously takes several hours. And for the first 45 minutes, approximately, perhaps an hour, you're going to be burning off any carbohydrates in your system. But after this, your carbohydrate stores are going to be pretty much depleted. So then you're going to you're going to rely on the fats in order to release energy slowly throughout the rest of the race. For our third paragraph, we can go down the route of discussing simple carbs. So for our AO1, we can mention the name simple carbohydrates. For our AO2, the next part of this paragraph, and our explanation, we can say simple carbohydrates produce energy very quickly and may be required if she has depleted her energy stores. She may take on energy gels for this reason. So I've given a good example of a simple carbohydrate there that can be used during the race, energy gels. And for our AO3, once again, a bit more detail and a bit more of a link to performance in the marathon. So these simple carbs will enable her to produce a fast finish at the end of the race in order to gain the fastest time possible. Following a long period of aerobic exercise, the simple carbohydrates may allow a sprint finish through the use of anaerobic respiration. So I'm showing a bit of knowledge of the marathon there in terms of a sprint finish. I'm showing my knowledge of energy sources by showing how simple carbohydrates are going to produce that sprint finish. And I've also squeezed in a really key term, anaerobic respiration, to show even further knowledge to the examiner. If you went down a route of discussing some other food sources, such as protein or such as vitamins and minerals, then this would be okay. It might just be a little bit more difficult to explain how important those food sources are in the lead up to and during the race. For example, protein would be of more importance after the race. Um, for vitamins and minerals, you could have gone down the route of explaining how they're important in order to keep the body healthy in the lead up to and during the race. But they're probably not quite as vital or as easy to explain as simple carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and fats.